Welcome to the next stage. Man, I'm excited that you're with us on this episode. It has been such a fun journey. This is episode number 7 of the podcast entitled The Next Stage. I am excited that we're actually at episode 7. Just several months ago, a group of friends of mine and I, we sat down, 3 of us, and started dreaming, started thinking about what a podcast designed for men to help them summit life's climb would be like if we could pull it off, if we could do it, full of a lot of just passion and heartbeat to help men develop and grow in the areas of their personal lives, of their careers, and the areas that their lives impact, their families, their relationships, their communities, and all the places in the world that they are at. And I'm excited that we're here. I'm Rob Stout. I'm your host. I use the word excited a lot, but I don't care. I am excited about what we're doing. And I want to invite you today to lean in. And then, if this is useful to your life, to pass it on to another man in your world. Perhaps there's a son that you know, a brother that you know. If you're a woman listening to this, maybe it's your husband, and you just kind of sneak in like, hey, I'm listening to this podcast, this guy. If you start talking about this guy named Rob that you're listening to, he will clue in, and he'll be like, who's this dude, right? So pass it on to him. The question I would ask you is, how does this impact your life and go deep in your life? But also, who can you spread this to? And just invite you to lean into that. You know, as I hang out with men and just talk, and we talk about life, inevitably there's a subject that comes up, and it's the subject of difficulties in life. Talking about things that are going on at work and with our families, with our relationships, with our communities. Maybe it's coaching, maybe it's business, whatever it is. But eventually this topic of, life is challenging. It comes up. And it's not that we just sit around and start to complain and, we're looking for tough things to hit our lives, or like to just be like a support group for guys who are down and out. Not at all. The guys I hang out with and the men I've surrounded myself with, they're leaders. They're passionate men. They're smart. I love guys who are smarter than me, stronger than me, and I'm not the best one in the group because I love to be stretched and then also to pull other men along as well. But inevitably, this topic of the challenges of life come up. Those are what we're going to call in this next series hard knocks. Okay, the School of Hard Knocks is what we're calling this next series. And it's going to be phased just like school, 101, 201, 301, 401. Who knows? We might have a graduate level or a PhD level course in this. But for the next several episodes, we're going to walk through this School of Hard Knocks and how to deal with them, how to allow the things that are happening to you to actually do something in you so that something different can happen through you. And not just have these things that are going on be something that just kind of happens and you're the victim, but instead you approach them with a different mindset. I empathize with this topic a lot. Several years ago, I was sitting in a coffee shop with a friend of mine that I will call Jim. Jim and I were talking, and we had a conversation just about what was going on in his career. And it was a time, and the economy was in a recession, and he had worked hard in his career for many, many years, a couple decades. And he got laid off in one job, moved to another town, got laid off, moved to where I live, near where I live in Denver, and got laid off from his 3rd job in a row after moving across the country. And I remember sitting there thinking, what do I tell this guy? Like, how do I was empathizing and like, man, I know that hurts and that's got to be tough. And I was trying to come up with some kind of plan, something helpful to help Jim out. Finally, I just leaned in to him and I said, listen, I don't have a grand plan. You don't need a grand plan. You don't need somebody to just come in and solve it for you. What I can tell you is don't give up. Don't throw in the towel. Stay with it, Jim. Hang in there. Allow this process to work something in you. Very interesting that a couple years later, we were sitting in a different coffee shop. I was going through some things in my life he was saying the same thing to me. Don't give up, Rob. Hang in there. Allow this season of your life to form something in you. Don't give up. Men, as we talk about this series that we're walking into, these several episodes of how do we handle hard knocks, the question I have for you is, how do you navigate the inevitable seasons of your life that will come up, and undoubtedly probably have come up? You might be in one right now and you're like, man, this is timely. I'm going through some tough stuff in my life right now. How do you navigate that? What do you do when seasons of hard knocks hit your life? Maybe out of nowhere. Maybe you did everything right. Maybe you went to school, you got the right education, you lived a good moral life. Maybe you're just like, Eagle Scout, greatest guy on the planet, Mr. Everything, but then out of the blue, something hits you. And it could be a physical challenge. Maybe it's an emotional struggle that you're going through. Maybe it's a relational challenge or a career challenge or whatever kind of challenge that you're in. I want you to lean into this next several episodes as we go to the school of hard knocks. And as we take a look at how we can allow something to form in us because of something that's happened to us so that something different can happen through us. And here's what I know about you. The kind of men who lean into this type of a podcast for men called The Next Stage are men who have a mantra like I do. I've actually got a mantra that's stuck above the inside threshold of my office door. It says, rise and grind. You're probably a guy like that who you don't have to push off the couch. Nobody has to check you to see if there's a pulse, but you just rise and you go for it. And you're involved passionately in every area that your life touches. You show up in your community. You show up at work. You show up with employees. You show up in relationship. You just show up and you bring 100%. And so I get the way that you live your life. And yet, hard knocks are part of that scenario, aren't they? They're not a but. I work hard, I play hard, I serve, I do all this thing, but all these things happen. They're an and, aren't they? And hard knocks are hitting me. How do I know that? Because I live in the same world you do. You might think, what does Rob do? Does he do this podcast all the time? Does he write and speak and all that kind of stuff? No. I actually have another world that I work in professionally. I work with an incredible team of people doing an incredible part of my job that I love. Traveling, working, leading, coaching, business development, and in addition, I have a very busy life of getting to do a podcast, getting to write, getting to speak, getting to coach. Very, very full life. And I try to do life the best I can because I want to summit my own life's climb. And yet right in the middle of that, just like you, tough stuff hits. A couple weeks ago, I was in San Antonio, Texas, and I was excited to go to Texas because where I live in Colorado, it was -14. And all my Texas buddies were like, man, it's so cold. It's like, it's almost in the 30s. And I'm like, boo-hoo, dude. -14 in Denver, right? Well, my wife, who never really texts much or calls much when I'm on the road with business, she reached out and she said, hey, can you give me a call when you get a second? I'm like, sure. And I got up from dinner. I was with some coworkers. I said, this is kind of strange. So I need to check in with her. Well, sure enough, we broke a pipe in my newly remodeled basement. One of our outside faucets froze because it was -14. And we had flooded our basement, drywall, blown in insulation. So for the next 3 weekends, I, not only traveling, working, launching our year, recruiting people, training our people, all this kind of stuff, but sure enough, demoing a basement of wet insulation, wet drywall, sucking water out of the carpet with a vacuum, with a heavy duty carpet cleaning vacuum, then repainting and all of that, all the while working, because it's January, right? The month that at least I'm recording this in. And the reality of hard knocks just hit your life when you least expect it, and sometimes when you least deserve it. Didn't do anything to deserve that one. Relatively minor example. But trying to do my best, and then bam, out of the blue, it happens, right? The things you're going through right now, probably a whole lot worse than that. That's just kind of what's happening right now. And I wouldn't include that as, super hard. That's kind of a first world hard. But, I get it. I get it. I live in the exact same context that you do. Here's the reality. How we approach the things that happen in our life make all the difference. The problem comes in, not that there is a problem, but the problem comes in our mindset, in how we approach the hard knocks in our lives. You know what I'm saying here? It's not that things happen. It's how we react and how we respond that matters. See, there's a couple different ways. Our understanding of what is going on really impacts us. And there's a couple different ways that people approach difficulty when it hits their lives. One is what I would just call entitlement. It's the mindset that says, hey, listen, I don't deserve this to happen in my life. AKA, I'm too good for hard knocks. Maybe you know this guy. Maybe you are this guy. Your approach to life is that you are somehow above hard knocks. You are too good for them. They happen to people who are lesser than you, not as smart, not as educated, not as wealthy, not as whatever it is that you hold dear. The reality of thinking and approaching the things that happen in your life as if you don't deserve them to happen results, in a sense, when they do happen, of anger, maybe of being just surprised that it happens, but probably more like a sense of anger and indignation that something bad befell your life. But what it really amounts to is that you've got a mindset of entitlement. I was talking to somebody who worked at a tech company, and they were in their late 20s, maybe 30, right? That just like several other tech companies, all the tech companies in the state of the economy as we're recording this episode, things are getting really tight. Layoffs are happening everywhere. And their company hit a series of layoffs, and they had to have a pretty serious reduction in their employee force. And so I was talking to this person, and I'm like, how did that work? And kind of getting inside their life a little bit, I started thinking, man, they don't remember the recession after 9/11. They were probably 3 or 4 years old, or if they were even born when that happened. They were really probably in elementary school or maybe middle school when the Great Recession of 2008 to 2012 hit. And I just remember thinking, man, you just were in college, life has been pretty easy. And all of a sudden they said this, the reduction in force that we had to go through was really, check this, an entitlement check for me, for a lot of the people I work with. I leaned back and I was like, an entitlement check. Part of me wanted to say, so you're admitting that you think you're entitled. But I was like, you know what? I get that. Things have been pretty easy for you, really. You haven't gone through all this stuff. And I'm sure people thought about me when I was that age, when they were older than me and they had gone through all kinds of difficult things. But there was an entitlement check. I just remember thinking, man, an entitlement check. Very interesting. It's a mindset that we approach hard knocks with. That's the first of the mindsets that we come at it with. The second is this. Not just I don't deserve hard knocks to happen to me, but how about this? Just the opposite of that. In fact, 180 degrees opposite of that. I do deserve the hard knocks that are happening to me. I do deserve it. They're just the opposite, but somehow they think that they're deserving of all of the things that are happening to them to happen. Remember the character in Winnie the Pooh? Eeyore? Eeyore was this kind of chronically depressed donkey. I think he was. I think Eeyore was a donkey. I'm pretty sure. But he was just kind of chronically depressed. His tail falls off. He's like, oh, well, wasn't much of a tail anyway. And I'm like, dude, fix your tail, man. But he's always got his ears down. He's always just, down. People with Eeyore complex in life look around and with kind of lenses on that look for hard things to happen to them. Catastrophe just seems to follow them around. It's like this rain cloud just kind of follows them around, is over their head, and it's constantly raining because that's their mindset. That, my friends, is not anchored. That, my friends, is not anchored in entitlement like the first approach was. This is more anchored in codependency. Waiting for the other shoe to drop is part and parcel of coming out of a codependent background. I was having breakfast with a friend of mine. We were talking about something that was going on in his life as he was moving into a new venture, and he finally made this statement. He said, you know what? I've decided that I'm going to stop waiting for the other shoe to drop and just go for it. I remember leaning back in my chair, eyes wide open, kind of jaw hit the floor. And he goes, what? Does that kind of hit hard? And I go, yeah. It's like that was my approach to life, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like things might be going great right now, but something's out there that's looming. That's, man, it's gonna take me out. It's gonna happen. It's gonna be bad. I gotta prepare for something bad to happen. What happens when we have that mindset is we almost self-sabotage. We stop ourselves from achieving the things that we want to do, that we feel called to do, that we feel prepared to do, but we don't do them because we're afraid something bad is going to happen. That is messed up thinking, my friends. And that morning when I was having breakfast with my friend, it hit me like a ton of bricks that I have some messed up thinking too. The result of this is that we create self-fulfilling prophecies. That no matter what happens, somehow it's going to find our way and we mess it up ourselves. The result of this, I think negative things should happen to me. I think hard knocks should happen to me. There's also a generational mindset. Have you ever noticed? People tend to live in this stuff generationally, and we've got it modeled for us, and so we just live it out. Men, the reality, if you do not get your mindset around this, you are going to pass on to the next generation this type of negative things need to happen to me, negative things happen to me, hard knocks are coming my way. You need to deal with that. The fact is that if you don't face them, you will pass them on to the next generation. The next result, victimhood. A good life is out there for those who are lucky, but I'm not lucky. Men, I want to encourage you to take a look at what your mindset is. These two problems that you face in this area. Number one, of entitlement, of thinking you may be too good. Number two, of Eeyore complex, never living up to your potential. Those are two problems that stand in the way of you really allowing the school of hard knocks to be something that teaches you. It doesn't have to be that way, man. It doesn't have to be that way for you. And why do I know that? Because I've lived through this. I am currently living through this. There have been times in my life when I thought, you know what? I'm pretty entitled. I've lived a good life. I've worked hard in school. I've tried to be a good moral person. And I've actually looked around at other people around me and thought, you know what? I'm better than them. And I began to feel entitled to a better life because of the way I was living. Rooted in pride, man. Just proud. Actually, I had a conversation with my mom and dad at one point. I said, you know what? I'm sorry. I have really leveraged some gifts that I've been given and started to live out of this place of pride. And I had to apologize to them for the way I was living. When some things did start to hit my life, I started to live in Eeyore complex at times. I started to live like, you know what, maybe this is the best it gets. Maybe I'm just that guy. Maybe I'm, I deserve this stuff to happen to me. Neither of those have to be true, men. Instead, the question I have to ask for you is, how do you navigate the inevitable seasons of life called hard knocks? So, gentlemen, as we take a look at this School of Hard Knocks, this 101 course, I want to ask you, how do you navigate these inevitable seasons of life? How do you do that? Well, as per usual, we don't just want to talk about these things philosophically or whatever, but really practically, how do you do that? What are a couple things that you can do? Here's the thing I want you to remember. Hard knocks are part of being a battle-tested man. It's how you prepare for and allow them to form you that counts. Hard knocks are part of being battle-tested as a man. They're part of what happens. It's the thing that tests you and grows you and stretches you. And it's how you prepare for and allow them to form you that counts. A couple other mindsets. The first mindset we talked about, the problem that stands in the way is the entitlement or the Eeyore complex of just kind of thinking that we deserve it. Instead, let me give you two other mindsets that you can hang on to. Mindset number one is that understanding that hard knocks are just part of the journey. Jesus said, the greatest teacher of all time, think about this. He said, in this world, you will have trouble. He said, but don't be fearful. I've overcome the world. But the first part of that, just hang on to that. In this world, you will have trouble. Peace, prosperity, easy street, not at all guaranteed. Trouble, absolutely guaranteed. Not that we need to go looking for that necessarily or just waiting for the other shoe to drop like we talked about, but there are going to be hard things that happen. And if you get in your mind, listen, hard things are not the exception to the rule. They are part of the rule. It's going to make all the difference. Think about those who are in the military. The phrase embrace the suck is part of the mantra that Marines, I think it's Marines, if you guys are in the military, Army, Marines, I'm not sure, it's one of the two of those, but embrace the suck. Like, this is hard, our training is hard. It becomes who they are. It's what they do. They do hard things. They expect that life is not going to be easy. Easy life is for civilians. A difficult life, a life of challenge, a life of defending and fighting and going through extreme difficulty is what they do to provide freedom for the rest of us. And if you served our country in the armed forces, thank you for your service. Because you embrace the suck, the rest of us can live in freedom. The application is to prepare for hard knocks because they are part of the journey. The second piece, Second mindset piece is this, that hard knocks can do something good in you if you let them. They can actually, instead of being an obstacle to your life, if you allow them to, they can do something good in your life if you let them. Another writer of the New Testament in the scripture says this, James, he says, count it all joy. Count it all joy what? When good things happen? When life is just, gumdrops and roses and rainbows and unicorns? No. He says this, count it all joy when you face troubles. Strangest thing I've ever heard the first time I heard that. Count it all joy when you face trouble because the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Now follow this. So counting it joy when you face tough things because your testing produces perseverance, and perseverance, when it finishes its work, creates something mature and complete in you, not lacking in anything. James is saying this, listen, when trouble is hitting your life, embrace it. Count it as a gift. Why? Because it's going to produce something in you called perseverance, and perseverance creates maturity. In life, we don't like to do that. But how many of us go to the gym a couple times a week? Every day, perhaps. Okay, maybe you don't go at all, but you should, okay? When you go to the gym, be it squats or bench or arms or back or whatever muscle group you're building, when you are using heavy weights and you are under the weight and trying to push it up or squat or doing whatever you're doing, you are actually tearing down your muscle fiber. And you pay for it. Some of you pay a lot of money for the training you're in, for weight training, for endurance training. That's the picture that we get here when counting it all joy. We look forward to it. Why would you look forward to it physically? The difficulty that you're putting yourself under, the stress that you're under, the actual tearing of your muscle fiber. Why? Because of what it produces. Because what it produces a body that you want to have. Perhaps a body that you're like, man, I'm gonna look good for my buddies. I'm gonna look good on the beach. I'm just gonna feel good. Count it all joy, not just when you're at the gym and you're under a weight and under a stress, but do the same thing when you're under hard knocks. Think, I'm doing this. I'm in this. Why? Because it's producing something good in my life. Hard knocks produce perseverance in us. They produce endurance in us, and that produces maturity. Hard knocks in life are the things that happen to you so that something can happen in you, so that something different and more mature can happen through you. Man, that is an incredible truth. Hang on to that. Hard knocks are things that happen to you so that something different, if you grab onto them, say, yep, I'm going to use this for my growth. It can happen in you. Something different can happen in you so that something different and more mature can be produced through your life. Men, some of you are weak men because you skirt every challenge in your life. It is necessary that you go through hard things, maybe a physical challenge that you want to take on, but to endure hard things that hit your life, no matter what they are. If they're a physical ailment that's hitting you, an emotional ailment, a relational ailment, a career ailment, whatever it is, when you embrace that and you allow something to happen in you so that something can different happen through you, that, men, is a good thing. I looked at my friend looked at me at those seasons in life and said, listen, don't give up. Hang in there. For both of us, good things came out of that because we became different people as we endured those things. Want to be battle tested, men? You ever see a man down the road from you in life and you're like, gosh, how did he get there? Wow. What an example of somebody who's just strong and he's been there, he's done that, he's accomplished. You get inside of anybody's story who's battle tested and you find out that they have embraced the suck. They've embraced it and they said, you know what? Something's happening to me so that something can happen in me so that something good can happen through me. That's what being battle tested is all about. And as I look back at my life, there have been some really, really tough things that have happened. I shared in our episode on passion, I think it was episode number 2, about growing up with a family and we had some special needs we had to deal with. I look back on that and I am grateful that something happened to us so that something could happen in us, so that something could happen through us. I'm grateful for the challenges I had in school growing up. Not the greatest student. It helped me to learn to overcome obstacles. I'm grateful for the challenges that I faced in my marriage. Some tough seasons. And I tell other men who are going through some things, hang in there, work through it. Why? Because what we have found on the other side of that is joy. It's goodness. Stay in it, man. Don't give up. And I'm grateful for things in my career, even the failures, because they've made me wiser. They've made me more perseverant, able to be battle tested. And now in this phase of my career, being able to help others, to train others, to mentor others, to leave a rich heritage behind, just like others did before me, with me. I'm grateful for all of it. Why? Because at this point, I'm taking a look at kind of a confluence of my life, of seeing all of these things come together and look back and say, you know what? They were good. They were good. Imagine if your life was marked by perseverance, of going through hard knocks. Imagine yourself a wiser man, a stronger man, a man with grit, a man with determination, someone who could stand proud of their life, someone who can tell stories, not about how you did everything right, not at all. Nobody wants to hear that. But a man who can tell stories about, you know what, we endured this and this is what came of it. And you stand humbly, but with a sense of pride about your life. Imagine your life down the road as you endure hard knocks. That's the School of Hard Knocks 101, man. The gold nugget that I want to leave you with is something we cited earlier, and it's this. Count it all joys. Count it all joy when you face trouble in your life, knowing that the testing of your faith produces perseverance, and let perseverance finish its work in you, that you would be mature and complete, not lacking in anything. Hard knocks are part of being battle tested. It is how you prepare for them and how you allow them to form you that counts. Men, the call to action I want to leave you with is this. I wrote a book around this subject. It's called Getting Even, Countering Life's Hard Knocks. Getting Even, Countering Life's Hard Knocks. And yes, those are my biceps on the cover right there. Not really. They're my AI biceps, I guess. I don't know, some dude. But the idea is not vengeful. It's not getting even like we're going to go after these guys like you're a member of the mafia. But instead, how do you get even? How do you get back to even? The title came out of a Mark Twain quote that one character was speaking to another in one of Twain's short stories, and he said this: a man should not wallow in his disappointments. Instead, his objective should be to get even with them. There is a bit of a fire in the belly there, isn't there? I'd love for you to go to my website, Sherpa5280.com. Click on the homepage. There's a big picture of the book right there. Click there. You can get the book. There's a hard copy version of it. There's also a e-reader version of it, but you can pick it up there. I'd encourage you to take a look at that. The book is full of just walks through this whole process of what hard knocks do in your life. At the end of each chapter, there's some questions where you can form for yourself your own thoughts, not what I just have to give you, but it gets you into thinking about your own story, and you come out of it with a solid plan, a solid takeaway. And I want to tell you, if you can't afford it, if you're like, man, we are absolutely destitute, send me an email. The next stage at Sherpa5280.com will get you set up. But man, I would love for you to do that, to grab a hold of this whole series, grab the book, grab a group of men around you, go through the book together. It'd be incredible to do. But I want to encourage you to lean into this series that we're doing called The School of Hard Knocks. Take a look at it, jump into it, and go for it together with us. I want to thank you so much for joining us on The Next Stage. This is episode number 7. Our team has worked tirelessly to allow this to be a resource to help you summit life's climb. If you have a note you want to drop to me, feel free to do it. The Next Stage at Sherpa5280.com. Would love to correspond with you there. Also, share this link with a friend. Maybe there's a guy in your life who's going through some tough things, and you're like, how do I help him? Give this to him. I think he would appreciate it. And ladies, if you're listening to this and your guy is like, going through some things, another man who's with him in the corner sometimes makes all the difference. Thanks for joining us. So grateful that you've been here. Just excited. It's a pleasure to be able to do this podcast. It's a true gift in my life. I want to invite you to join us on the next episode as we talk about the School of Hard Knocks 201. We'll see you then. Have a great week and go for it in your world today. We'll talk to you later.